Linda's funeral?
It was myself and Roxanne, Zachary Cruz, Nicholas Cruz, obviously I brought him, and we brought my daughter as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, that was it.
How did Nick react to nobody else coming to Linda's funeral?
Well, he asked me, he was very upset. He said, why is nobody here? And I told him that when we had made the publication in the newspaper for her death, we had put the wrong date, unfortunately. I was lying to him. But I could see that he was extremely distraught about that. I didn't know what to tell him.
Okay. And so, just be clear, what you told him was a lie?
Yeah.
Did Nick ever express to you after Linda died about the concerns that he had about her health before she died?
Yeah, he said that he believed that it was cigarettes and the alcohol that had killed her. Too much smoking and too much drinking.
And was smoking something that you also observed her doing during the time that you lived in Parkland?
A bit.
Was Nick in school when you took him to Linda's funeral? I mean, was he enrolled in school at that time?
I am not 100% sure if he was in school or not in school, but right after his mother passed away, I'm sure he was not attending school and that he had missed too many days and they wouldn't allow him back into the school.
Okay. May I approach Mr. Gold quickly?
You may.
Mr. Gold, I'm just going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes. It's Defense 5C and 5E, and just tell me if you recognize these photographs.
Yeah, I believe I took them.
Okay. And are these photographs of Nick and Zach?
They are.
And what event are they at?
That's during the funeral, and that's Linda's ashes that they're holding.
Okay. And you think you actually took these photographs?
I think I did.
Okay. Offering evidence 5E and 5C, please. No objection.
Okay, without objections, the defense 5C for identification will be received as 58. 5E for identification will be received as 59.
And we'll look at those in just a second, Mr. Gold, but when she died and you were talking with him, you said you didn't know if he was in school. What about working? Did you know whether or not he was working?
Yeah, I think he had a job at the dollar store.
Okay.
Yeah, when he was with Roxanne, he had a job across the street working at the dollar store. And I believe he told me when he moved to Parkland, he was able to work at the dollar store as well.
Okay. Did you offer him additional work with you?
I did. I worked with a very nice, well, one of my foremans, I own a sports construction company. One of my foremans is a very nice guy, and I thought it would be good for him to be, around some good people who could teach him something and help him. And, we offered him a job, but, for some reason, he didn't take the job. I guess Roxanne, I don't really know what happened, but he never did end up working for me.
Okay. But did you make efforts to actually try to go pick him up for work?
We did a few times, yes.
Okay. And he just didn't show up?
He didn't show up, unfortunately.
Okay. And did that bother you?
It just, I felt that my foreman could have really helped him, and that he could have really, kind of mentored him and been, good influence on him, especially after his mother died. He was extremely distraught. So, we tried 3 times, and then we said, you know what, if he, when he's ready, he'll reach out to us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gold, I'm just gonna show you, may I publish them?
You may.
Thank you. I'm gonna show you, defense 59, if you could just describe to the jury this image.
Once again, that's Zachary and Nicholas Cruz holding his mother's urn.
Okay. And this is at the actual funeral?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I'll show you what has been entered as defense 58. Ask you to describe that to the jury.
Once again, that's at Linda Cruz's funeral. That's Zachary Cruz and Nicholas Cruz holding their mother's urn, getting ready to place it next to Roger Cruz's body.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have you kept in touch with Nick since the murders that he committed at Marjorie and Douglas?
He's called me a few times.
Why do you take those calls?
I wasn't going to ever speak to him again after the event happened. When I heard about the shooting, I called Nick to warn him that there was a shooter around and to be careful, because I heard there was, a shooter right down the street. I didn't even realize, I couldn't even imagine that it was him. And then when I found out that it was in fact him, and that, 17 children had died, I just started screaming. I didn't have, I couldn't have been any more distraught and angry, and I had a million emotions going through me, and not one of them was good. And I never thought I would ever speak to him again. But as time went on, I thought about the whole situation, and I learned, that his mother had used drugs while he was a baby. I had
Sustained.
It's okay. We'll just talk about what you actually knew yourself. Not what you learned after the fact, but you were obviously horrified by what he did, right?
Well, horrified, and I think, going back, Linda had told us that that the children were in fact adopted. Later on, we had found out about that. And just the fact that this young man just had been given everything that could have possibly gone wrong in a kid's life had just happened.
Sustained.
In terms of what you saw going on in the Cruz home, did you feel as though, of the 3 people that lived there, obviously Linda, Nick, and Zach, did you feel like the problems in the home were caused by one of the family members?
Objection. It's just opinion.
He can state his opinion about
What he observed, but you need to ask open-ended questions.
just about what you observed. Was there one problem in that home?
Well, both children were both problematic kids. Nicholas was, being bullied by his brother. That happened a lot. It was also, I found it, pretty problematic that they were always, playing violent video games.
Okay. Did you know ever that Nick had guns?
No, not till after the incident had happened.
In terms of, I know you've already stated that you had some issues with Linda's parenting, but the Nick that you knew during the time that you lived next door, was he somebody that you think a person should have allowed to have a gun?
No weapons. I mean, he would lose his temper. he would lose his temper, easily, and really, would go off the reservation when he lost his temper. So no, he's not somebody that I would say should have any kind of weapon.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Just a couple more things, Mr. Gold. I appreciate your patience. During the episodes that you described that Nick would have, did you ever see him hitting himself?
Yes, many times.
Based on your knowledge, was there ever a time that Roxanne and Tyler, after your and Roxanne's relationship deteriorated, was there ever a time that Roxanne and Tyler lived with the Cruz family that you know of?
I wasn't aware that she had moved in with Linda Cruz, but she had gone there for a week to stay there when we were having a fight.
Okay. And during that period of time, did you know where your son was?
No, I didn't.
How old was he at that point?
He must have been 3 or 4.
Okay. And how long did you not know where he was?
He went missing for 2 months.
Were you ever aware during the time that you lived next door to the Cruzes that any of their dogs died?
Yes, I believe I was aware that one of the dogs had eaten a frog and had been poisoned.
Okay. Were you talking about like a cane toad or a buffa toad?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. How did Nick react to that, if you recall?
Very saddened by the situation.
Okay. And did he seem angry about the toads?
He went out on a killing spree on the toads. I do recall that, yes. He tried to kill every toad in the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. I appreciate it.
State, whenever you're ready. Did you need to tell me something, sir?
No.
Okay. Okay. Sir, there's a water there for you also if you need it.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate that.
May it please the court. Good afternoon, Mr. Gold.
Good afternoon.
So you moved next door in 2008, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and you lived there about, you said 2011, correct?
About 3 years, yes.
And previously, have you said 2010 or 2011?
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure if it was 10 or 11.
Okay, so about 2.5 years.
Yeah,
Correct.
2.5, 3 years.
All right, and then you moved to Lake Worth, and you were there about a year, correct?
That's correct.
And you testified earlier that the defendant came to your house in Lake Worth.
Yeah, I believe they came there one or two times, if I recall.
Have you ever testified differently, that he never came to your house at Lake Worth?
I don't think so. I think he came there once or twice.
The question was, did you ever testify differently at deposition?
I'm not 100% sure if I said he was there or not there.
Mind if I show you page 32? Do you remember giving a deposition on January 19th, 2022?
I do.
All right. I'll show you, counsel, page 32, lines 11 through 13. Would you like to read that?
Sure. You said 13 through...
11 through 13.
Oh, 11 through 13, sure. Okay, so for that 1 year that you lived in Lake Worth, you didn't see him. No, I don't believe he came there. Okay. And how about when you moved into Wilson? He came here twice.
Okay.
Yeah, I just trying to recall. It was a long time ago. I think he came there one time.
Okay, but in January, you said he didn't come to the Lake Worth house, but he came to the West Palm house twice.
Twice, yeah. I
times.
think I might have been incorrect. Going back to my memory, I think he went there one time. It's really not very relevant either way.
Okay. Very few times.
Very few times, yeah.
Okay. And one of those times was when they came over and you were going to pay Nick and Zach to do some chores at the house, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and the reason that you asked them to do chores is because this house was a foreclosure you bought, right?
that's correct.
And it needed some yard work.
It did. We were trying to find something for the boys to do, and I could use the help.
Okay, and that's fine. So, and there was a lot of work for the kids to do, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so this was probably around the time you bought the house in 2012, since it needed the yard work done.
It could have been a little after. There was really a lot of work to do in that home.
Okay, and so on this visit, the boys work, right?
They did a little bit of work, yes.
Okay, and so 2012, 2013 maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So 2013, Nick would be 14 or 15 years old. Zach would be 13 years old, right?
Sounds about right.
Okay. And you had them in your car with you, and that's where the iPad was, right?
Yes, I was driving them to Faith Farm
Okay.
to meet his mother.
Okay. And you took this opportunity to let them know that they should be better kids, right?
I was giving them a bit of a speech about stealing and about how, it really is wrong and how kids really shouldn't steal. And I was really centering that more to Zachary than Nicholas. I told both the kids. Nick really didn't steal very much. Zachary did steal a lot. So I was telling them, about the wrongs of stealing. They were both in the back seat at the time. And I was just giving them a speech about, being a good person, trying to do the right thing, not to steal.
Be good to your mother too, right?
Everything, just trying to,
Okay.
trying to get them to understand a little more.
So the answer is yes, you did give him a speech about not stealing, right?
Yeah, I did.
And it was really directed towards Zach.
Yes.
And you knew from his mother that Zach wasn't even allowed in a lot of stores in Parkland, right?
Well, I knew firsthand about many of the events of the shoplifting. I saw the police outside the house. Linda told me about a lot of the shoplifting that had happened.
Okay. So you find out that the iPad was at their house, and you had this conversation with Linda Cruz, correct?
Well, I had the conversation with Linda Cruz, and then she told me that she had, after maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, she had found the case.
And you were upset at both Zachary and Linda, correct?
I was.
Okay. And you lost a lot of respect for Linda as a result of that, didn't you?
I certainly did.
And you became distant with her, correct?
Yes.
And you think, or you thought, that Linda was a pathological liar, didn't you?
I didn't realize when
Can you answer yes or no?
That's a yes.
Okay. And you thought she would lie about even stupid things, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And one of those lies that you thought was a really big lie was the fact that she said she was the biological mother of the boys.
That was one of the biggest lies she's ever said.
Right. That was a terrible lie to you, that she was saying those were her natural born children, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you thought and talked about it that seemed very unlikely because of Zach's darker skin, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the other thing that you thought was a really big lie was her financial state. You thought, you learned later that she was a lot better off than she let on, right?
I did.
And that bothered you, and that was another lie that she had perpetuated, correct?
It infuriated me.
It infuriated you that she lied about her financial state?
She lied about her financial situation. I found out later she was okay. She had some money. She just chose not to spend any of it.
Okay. And so because of this iPad incident, you had this falling out with Linda, and you would no longer speak with Zach too, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And as a result of that, you never saw Linda Cruz again?
No.
Okay. Now, and is it fair to say that after you moved in approximately 2010 or 2011, that you never visited the Cruz home again, correct?
No, that's not correct. I don't remember when I went there, but I did visit shortly after the iPad was stolen to go there and ask her if she could please look around for the iPad. So yes, I did visit the Cruz residence to try to recover the iPad for my friend.
Do you remember giving a statement different than that at the same deposition on January 19th, 2022, when you were asked, after you moved from Parkland, page 50, lines 5 through 6, or 4 through 6, excuse me, lines 3 through 6. After you moved from Parkland, did you ever visit the Cruz home again? Answer, no, I did not.
I was incorrect when I said that.
Okay, so you think you've been there one more time?
Most certainly went there.
One time?
A single time, yes.
And that was to get the iPad?
To retrieve the iPad, yes.
Which you never retrieved?
We got the case.
Okay. And isn't it true that after you moved from Parkland, there were only 2 or 3 times after you moved from Parkland until you saw the defendant again at the funeral that you actually saw the defendant? So from 2010 or 11 through 2017, you saw him 2 or 3 times.
See, that sounds about right.
Okay. But you actually did speak to Linda one more time, didn't you?
Well,
I'll refresh your recollection.
I believe I called just to ask her if she knew where Roxanne was.
Exactly. You believe that Roxanne kidnapped your son, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And you already didn't like Linda Cruz or Zachary Cruz, and now Roxanne is staying with your arch enemy, Linda Cruz.
I wouldn't call her my arch enemy. I was, just angry at her for lying and angry at her because I felt she could have helped in this situation. She was anything but an arch enemy.
Okay, but you were mad at her because of an iPad, right?
I was disappointed in her.
Okay, to the point that you wouldn't talk to her anymore.
I chose not to speak to her
What?
anymore. I chose not to speak to her
Okay.
anymore, and I called her, to ask her for help, to help me find Roxanne,
Okay.
help me find my son.
And so you called the house and you wanted to know, where's Roxanne? My son disappeared, correct?
Well, no. My son was with Roxanne, so I was trying to find my son and Roxanne.
And after that, then there was no further conversations with Linda Cruz, correct?
I don't believe I spoke to her after
Okay.
that.
So regarding Roxanne Deschamps, is it fair to say that you had an on-off relationship with Roxanne?
We did.
Okay. And in case it wasn't clear on direct, you have a child with her, correct?
We do.
Okay. And at the time of Linda's death, November of 2017, you and her were not speaking to each other, correct?
Yeah, we had a few months that we were not talking to each other.
And that was a particularly bad time for you two, a lot of ill feelings between you, correct?
That is correct.
And the funeral, although the death was November 1st, the funeral wasn't until December, maybe December 2nd of 2017, correct?
That is right.
All right. And by that time, the defendant had already been kicked out of Roxanne's house, correct?
I believe that's right. Yeah,
Madam,
it
may
is.
we, have a sidebar?
Sure. Mr. Marcus, excuse me, may I just, one more thing, please? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 10-minute, as close to 10 minutes as we can. I know that there are 22 of you and there's only 2 restrooms. I wish we had bigger facilities. We don't. So as much time as you need, but as close to 10 minutes as you possibly can, okay? Thank you so much. Do not discuss the case and do not leave your notepads behind. Thank you.
It's okay.
the jury is back. Everyone else may be seated. State, whenever you're ready, you may continue with your questioning.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Gold, you were asked in direct examination about the golf club incident, correct?
Yes,
And was that when you were living next door?
that's correct.
Okay, and you had a trailer for your motorcycle, you said, and didn't you testify that all of a sudden he started beating your trailer with a golf club for no reason?
Yeah, I don't recall what set him off.
Do you remember giving a different answer to that question?
No, I don't.
Do you remember in the deposition that I've already cited to you only in January of this year, January 19th, you said he did something and I complained about it. Do you remember saying those words?
Honestly, I seem to have forgotten that.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I forgot that. I forgot exactly what happened. I'm trying to recall it.
And do you remember also saying, I think he was a little angry at me?
I mean, clearly he was angry at me, if he was beating the trailer, obviously, yes.
Well, he wasn't just walking down the street and grabbed a golf club and started beating your trailer, did he?
No, I just forgot exactly what led up to it.
So but that's not what you said on direct examination. You said he didn't do anything, he just started beating the trailer, but that's not true, is it?
I didn't recall what he did or what happened exactly to set him off. I think those were my exact words.
So the truth of the matter is, you said no to him about something, or told him he shouldn't be doing what he's doing, and he got mad, and he started beating the trailer, right?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so it wasn't out of the blue, correct?
The beating of the trailer was out of the blue, and that's what I meant. When he was beating the trailer, he left, and then he beat the trailer. I didn't say that nothing happened at all. I said he left, and then out of the blue, he beat the trailer.
So let me go back to Roxanne now, and during the time that the defendant has left Roxanne's and is living with the Sneeds, correct?
Okay, yes.
And there's some contact now, at least by text, with you and the defendant, or there was some contact with you when you were taking him home or back to the Sneeds' house after the funeral, correct?
Can you repeat
After
the
the
question?
funeral, did you take him back to the Sneeds' house?
Yes, I dropped him
Okay. And actually, you picked him up from the Sneeds' house, correct?
off. That is correct.
And actually, he told you that that he was happy at the Sneeds' house. He was happy with the Sneeds. He was fine, correct?
Yeah, he said he was okay.
And that he was working at the Dollar Tree, correct?
That's correct.
But the defendant started complaining to you about Roxanne, correct?
He was a little pissed off at her, yes.
Well, and so you ever heard the expression, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? You ever hear that expression?
I have.
Okay, so Roxanne's your enemy, right?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but then she was, wasn't she?
We were both angry at each other.
Okay. In fact, you were so angry with her that you offered to hire an attorney to sue Roxanne because of complaints that the defendant was making about her, correct?
I'm not sure about hiring an attorney. I was having issues with Roxanne and having custodial issues with my son. I wasn't going to hire an attorney because of Nicholas, no.
Did you ever make a statement different from that one?
I don't believe so. We were,
You believe so, or you don't believe so?
don't believe so. We were,
Okay.
we were fighting about many matters, and I was going to hire an attorney for custodial purposes, but that's about all I can recall.
Do you remember being asked the question, did you think, well, you were going to hire an attorney to go after Roxanne? What was that based on? I was just going to help Nicholas recover money, and whether there was any money or anything, I really don't have any idea. Question, well, were you going to hire an attorney to go after Roxanne? Well, I was going to do that just to help Nicholas. So, Mr. Gold, were you going to hire an attorney on behalf of Nicholas to go against Roxanne?
I was not actually going
Okay,
to
there's an
do
objection
that.
pending. Hold on one second. Let me speak to the lawyer.
So, Mr. Gold, you did hire an attorney to go after Roxanne to help the defendant, correct?
No, I did not hire an attorney to help go after
I
Roxanne.
didn't ask you if you did hire it. I said you were going to hire an attorney.
No, I was not going to hire an attorney to do that.
Did you say that in
we
the
have
deposition?
we may have spoken about doing that, but I had no intentions of actually doing that.
But you told us that in the deposition that you were going to do it.
That we were talking about it, but we were not going to actually do it, and we never did hire an attorney.
And the fact that you didn't hire it is because you didn't really have any facts anyway. It was all based on what the defendant told you, correct?
It was based on such loose materials. There was so much emotion going on at the time. There was so much confusion that a lot was going on. But no, I did not hire an attorney, and I didn't have I really wasn't going to do that.
That loose material was everything the defendant was telling you, correct? That was your only source of information, right?
Yes, he was, well, him and, other people as well.
Now, you came here to, one of the things you talked about was Linda's use of alcohol, correct?
That's right.
And it never occurred to you in 2008 to 2010, maybe 2011, that Linda was an alcoholic, did it?
It didn't, no.
Okay, and you're telling the jury now that you're looking back at it and you're realizing that she suffered from alcoholism, correct?
I've learned a lot more about alcoholism in after that.
All right, and isn't it true that everything you learned about alcoholism was from Nicholas Cruz telling you that she was an alcoholic? Isn't that true?
No, it's not true.
Did you ever say that it was actually Nicholas who pointed out that his mother was an alcoholic?
Nicholas pointed out that his mother was an alcoholic, and that is correct. But
And that's when you suddenly realized, oh, Linda Cruz was an alcoholic because Nicholas Cruz is telling me 10 years later from when I last saw her.
No, that is not the reason I realized that.
You didn't see her really since 2012, correct?
That's correct.
And so you're saying in 2022 that I remember now that she's an alcoholic after speaking with the defendant, correct?
No, that's not correct at all. I was actually speaking with Roxanne and speaking with other friends and looking at the whole situation. I've also had some dealings with people who were alcoholics, and I learned about alcoholism and the horrors that it brings to families. And it was
Mr.
from
Gold.
that I learned about what it means to be an alcoholic. And I'm looking back at what events happened, and I realized she was an alcoholic. I didn't realize it at the time.
Mr. Gold, isn't it true that you said you didn't realize she was an alcoholic? It was actually Nicholas who pointed out that his mother was an alcoholic? Did you say those words?
He pointed out that she had been drinking a lot. And then when I went through the drinking that she had done, every time I came in and I saw a drink, I realized, wow, she was in fact an alcoholic.
Did you
But
know Finney Browd? Did you know Finney Browd?
I don't think so.
Did Linda ever share with you that she was taking the defendant to psychologists and psychiatrists?
She did.
Do you remember giving a statement different from that?
I don't think so. She was bringing him to counseling. I was told that he was going to a special school. I was told that he was getting help. So I would imagine that was with a counselor and with a psychologist.
Do you remember being asked the question on January 19th? Okay, and did Linda tell you that she had already taken Nicholas Cruz to psychologists and psychiatrists? Answer, no.
After I learned that she had been, that he was going to a special school and that she had in fact been doing that.
Could you please answer the question?
Sure.
Did she tell you about psychiatrists and psychologists and you're talking about schools?
Well,
Is it true you said she did not tell me about psychiatrists and psychologists?
No,
Correct?
she didn't tell me directly, but from what I learned after that he had been going to a special
from
school.
Linda Nicholas. Did Linda Nicholas ever tell you that she took him to psychiatrists and psychologists?
Oh no, Linda did not, but I learned that she had been. She did not directly tell me that, no.
Can you please just answer the questions?
Sure.
Thank you. In fact, isn't it true that for years, or till the present, you were unaware of Henderson Mental Health and Camelot would provide therapy service to the defendant at the home? Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct?
Yeah.
And you were not aware of what mental health support that Linda Cruz gave to both of her children, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and you came in here earlier and said she should have gotten help earlier, correct?
That
You
is
said
correct.
that, right?
Yeah.
Same objection.
Did you say that?
Objection.
Overruled.
Did you? I'm
Hold
sorry.
on, there's no reason for anyone to raise their voice. Overruled.
You said that earlier today, didn't you? That she should have gotten help earlier, correct?
She should have gotten them help earlier, yes.
You don't know when she got them help, do you?
I was told that she didn't get help for some time.
Well, did you know that she was taking him to a psychiatrist when he was 3 years old? Did you know that?
I did not know that. no.
Okay, so you didn't know about Henderson Mental Health coming to the house for years, correct?
And I didn't know that they did that.
You didn't know about Camelot services coming to the house and giving therapy for a period of time as well, correct?
I knew there was some after a while.
Can you answer the question? Did you know that Camelot was coming to the house?
I
Yes or
didn't
no?
know who was coming to the house, but I did know that they were getting some type of help. I didn't know the name of, who was doing it or what services, but I did know that they were receiving some type of help.
Do you know the names of the psychiatrists who were taking care of him?
No,
Do you know the names of the psychologists who were taking care of him?
no,
Do you know the names of the ESE teachers that had him from kindergarten through high school? Do you
No,
know
but
any of them?
But I did know that he was receiving that help. I did know that he went to a special school and that he was receiving special help from the
From
ESE.
kindergarten on, correct?
I'm not sure exactly when he got the help, but I know he was getting help and he went to a special school.
But you came in and said she wasn't getting him help, but you really don't know what help she was giving him, do you?
Initially, when we moved in there, we were under the impression that they were not receiving any help.
Because isn't it true that she was a private person?
Extremely private.
So why do you think it's your business as a neighbor as to what mental health counseling? Relevance? They brought this up.
Okay. No speaking objections. Overruled.
Why do you think it's your business as a neighbor to know what mental health counseling Linda Cruz is getting for her children?
I didn't ask what type. I told her that she should seek some type of counseling. And I never asked her of the names or anything else. I told her, it appears your son needs mental health help. And that's all I did. And anybody who was caring and saw this behavior from a child would say the same thing. It would be ridiculous
I'm
not
going to
to
object, Your Honor. He's not answering the question.
All right, sir, just ask the question that's asked of you, please.
The question is, what business is it of yours as to what mental health counseling the mother gives her son? Is it your business?
It was my business to point out that there appeared to be an issue with
But
her
it wasn't
son.
your business as to what services he was getting,
The
right?
services, no, and I never asked about
And
them.
her financial status was not your business either, was it?
Well, it seemed to be my business when the house didn't have any food in the cupboards.
Okay, that was your business.
Well, when you see children going hungry and there's no food, I would say any decent person would try to help.
But yet, you said she was devoted to her children, didn't you?
She was, yes, it appeared to be.
She just would starve them to death.
They didn't seem to have food in the house, and she
Okay.
complained about finances.
In reference to both children being challenging, you thought Zach was the worst of the two children, correct?
I did.
And let me ask you something. You mentioned the loud noises that Nick would respond to, correct?
Yes.
Do you know if he had any problem with the loud noises when he shot 139 times inside the school?
All right, sustained.
Your Honor, it goes to whether or
Let me
not...
speak to the lawyers.
So, Mr. Gold, would you imagine that the sound of 139 AR-15 rounds inside a building is a pretty loud noise?
Absolutely.
What?
Absolutely.
Overruled.
Now, you've had conversations with the defendant while he's been in jail, correct?
He's called me a few times.
And you consider him to be a friend, don't you?
I would consider him to be somebody that was in my life for a short time, who I tried to give some assistance to and tried to help. I considered him a friend till the incident happened. Then I couldn't have stronger feelings of hatred and animosity and animus towards anybody. I don't think I've ever disliked anybody more. And as time went by, I just felt that he suffered from, mental illness, that no normal, rational human being
Your Honor,
could ever
objection.
do anything like this.
Could you direct him to answer only the questions and stop going into speeches?
Okay, all right, sir, please.
Sorry, I won't do it again.
Listen to the question. If you don't understand the question, you can ask, but otherwise you need to answer the question.
Sure.
Did you consider him a friend?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. So you didn't need to be dragged here with a subpoena. You were happy to come and testify as a friend, and you take his phone calls and talk to him, correct?
I wouldn't have come here if I wasn't under subpoena, no.
Well, you take his phone calls and talk to him, don't you?
I do, because I'm trying to understand the situation and understand why this happened.
When he speaks to you, does he seem coherent and logical?
He does.
Now, in your conversations with the defendant, did you ever offer to introduce the defendant to a friend of yours who is a famous movie producer?
I did.
And did you tell the defendant that this famous producer comes to your house all the time and that you will put the defendant on the phone with him?
No, I don't. I'm not sure if I said I would put him on the phone, but yes, I did tell him, one of my companies is a production company, and I think this is an important historical event.
Did you tell him that this famous producer did work with Stan Lee? Stan Lee's a legendary Marvel comic, Spider-Man co-creator.
I was working with Stanley.
Okay, so did you tell him that this famous movie producer did work with Stan Lee, and that you knew him and worked for him?
No, I was the one that was working with Stanley.
What?
I was working with Stanley. The producer did not.
Did you tell him he did a little work when I was working with Stan Lee?
Yes.
And did you tell the defendant that he's one of the famous producers? He has done Tom Hanks movies, he's done Brad Pitt movies, it's crazy. Did
Yes.
you tell that to the defendant?
I did.
And did you also tell him, this is on August 19th of last year, did you also tell him in the same conversation, later in that conversation, talking about movies, I'm amazed someone hasn't approached you about making a movie.
Yes, I did say that.
And did you bring the subject back up on August 25th, 6 days later with him?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall saying his name is Lee Allison? He is a famous producer and actually made a couple of movies with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. He comes over the house all the time. I was the best man at his wedding, for God's sake. Yeah, he does movies all the time, and he is putting me in as an extra. I am kind of excited about that. He mentioned it. He's like, you should make a movie about Nicholas Cruz's life. And I'm like, I don't know about that, but it's a good message about communities not caring about people. yeah, the only way I would do anything is if it would help people, you know. That's what I told him. Is that true? Is that what you told the defendant?
Those were not my exact words. No, I said that this should, you know, his event should be looked at, and it should be, people should learn from it, and some good has to happen.
Your Honor, at this time, I move the he's denied making the statement. I move those portions into evidence in certificate of record.
Your Honor, I just need to take a minute to listen to it.
Okay, we'll put on the white noise. Mr. Marcus, does the exhibit have an identification number
Yeah.
or letter?
It's marked as State's Exhibit 26B for identification.
Right, over the defense objection states 26B for identification will be received as states 487.
Judge, we weren't able to listen to it because of the white noise. We need an opportunity to listen to it, please.
That request is overruled.
Published, Your Honor?
You may.
So just so the record's clear, you're prohibiting the defense from listening to evidence that the state of Florida intends to moving into evidence right now, preventing us from having an opportunity to listen to it.
Just for the record, to be clear, I am not allowing you the opportunity to stop this cross-examination and listen to evidence that you have already been provided. This is cross-examination. They've told you where they are, what they're referring to, what exact, and Mr. Marcus, if you can specify the date and time of the jail call?
August 19th, 21, at 3:10 into 3 minutes and 10 seconds, and at 9:55 in that first phone call, second one, August 25th, 21, at 13 minutes and 30 seconds into the phone call.
There you go.
Judge, I need an opportunity to respond and make a record because there are over 500 jail calls. We have in fact been provided them because we got the calls and we gave them to the state, but we have not had an opportunity to review these two calls. And what we have been doing at courtesy to each other is to provide the state with documents or anything else that we're moving into evidence so that we can listen to them ahead of time and make any appropriate objections. This was not provided to us before, like we have been providing everything to the state. So if you're not gonna allow us to listen to it, that's absolutely fine. But I need to make a record that you're not allowing us to do that.
That's my ruling. Thank you. You may be seated.
There's the Da Vinci Code.
Oh yeah, with Tom Hanks. That was a good one. You know, my one producer who works with me, his name is Lee Allison. He actually worked on that movie.
No way.
He's a famous producer, and we've become really good friends.
Wow. Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, listen, next a video call, and he happens to be in my house, he comes over here all the time, I'll put you on with him. He's cool as shit.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, he did a little work when I was working with Stan Lee.
Yeah, you told me about family.
Yeah, so he's the one. So he's one of the famous producers. He's done Tom Hanks movies. He's done Brad Pitt movies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, talking about movies, I'm amazed somebody hasn't approached you about making a movie. My one buddy who works with me, his name is Lee Allison. He's a famous producer and actually made a couple of movies with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. He's very famous. Fuck, yeah, he comes over the house all the time. I was the best man at his wedding, for God's sake.
Wow.
Yeah. So he does movies all the time, and he's putting me in as an extra. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Wow.
He mentioned it. He's like, you should make a movie about Nicholas Cruz's life. And I was like, I don't know about that. I go, but it is a good message about communities not caring about people.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want that to know to do. You know?
Yeah. The only way I would do anything is if it would help people, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I told him.
So, Mr. Gold, on 2 occasions you brought up Lee Allison being a famous producer, and you were trying to entice him to make a movie about his life, correct?
I said he should.
You did, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I honestly forgot that I had said that I would put him on.
So, because Zachary steals an iPad, you don't talk to him anymore, correct?
It wasn't just an iPad. It was a lot of events. It was all the shoplifting. It was, the bullying. It was also the fact that I had just finished telling him about being a better person and not stealing, and he had just 3 minutes later stolen an iPad from my vehicle.
And Linda defends him and puts up your ex at her house, and you're done with her then after that, correct?
Oh, done with who?
Linda.
Yes, I am.
But you're able to overlook a mass killing by the defendant and announce he is your friend.
I didn't.
Hold on 1 second, please. Grounds?
Relevance.
Overruled.
You're able to overlook that he
It
killed
was-
17
it-
people, and
it-
you're
it
not
was-
ready to be done with him, right?
It was years before I spoke to him. I'm not sure how long it was before I spoke to him.
Who?
To Nicholas Cruz. I was so angry and just broken about the whole situation. It took me a long time to come to terms and find it in my heart to speak to him again.
Well, it was years, and you still didn't come to terms with Linda Cruz, right?
I would have spoken to her again.
Okay. But you decide 10 years after you last saw her that she was an alcoholic.
Well, I said I didn't realize that she had been an alcoholic.
Okay. Isn't it true that your testimony about Linda Cruz and for the defendant is biased because you would still like to make a movie about Nicholas Cruz's life and make money, correct?
There's no bias. I'm just trying to get to the facts and understand how this situation could have possibly happened.
Do you agree it would be deplorable for a friend of the defendant to exploit these brutal murders by making a movie and making money over it? Do you understand
Any
that?
exploitation would be terrible.
What?
Any exploitation of this would be terrible.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Secor?
Mr. Gold, Mr. Marcus asked you a few times what business it was of yours regarding what was going on in the Cruz house. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
What were you concerned about when you lived next door?
They just didn't have enough food. They didn't seem to have enough money. We were just trying to help them. There was no business of ours other than just lending a hand.
Were you concerned about the well-being of Nick?
Both kids.
Do you know, after Linda died, do you know who was driving her car?
I do.
Who?
It was Roxanne.
And do you know if Roxanne had other stuff from Linda's house?
I don't know exactly what she had, but I believe that she had some of Linda's possessions.
You object move to strike. He said he doesn't know.
Sustained.
When you were talking to Nick about the idea of a movie, was that because you were trying to make money?
No.
What did you think would be why did you think that might be a good reason? A good thing to do?
I think we have to understand more about what causes a school shooting and why somebody would ever imagine doing this, or even more so carrying something like this out. I think it's very important to understand that in order to, be a better society and be better people.
And I think you heard on the call that Nick, after you brought that up, Nick said he didn't want to do it, is that right?
That's correct.
And, you know, Mr. Marcus was insinuating that you were trying to somehow benefit financially from this situation. Have you done anything since Nick committed these murders as a way to try to help society? Have you done anything with your own finances to try to help society?
I have.
Objection, irrelevant.
It's a directly responsible.
Okay, all right. Are you asking him with regard to this incident or in general?
Because of this incident, something that he did.
Okay, overruled.
You can answer.
Okay, I felt that this shooting should never have happened, obviously. I felt...
Object has nothing to do with background character of the defendant.
Okay, if your question is whether or not he has taken any affirmative action in responding to this incident, then he can answer that, but he's not answering.
If you contributed financially anything in response to this as a way to try to help society?
I have.
Okay, and what was that contribution to?
There is a movement called the Underground Railroad, which frees women from sex slavery, and I had vowed that I would save 17 people's lives to try to just help with, you know, this horror that has happened. And I had been in the right place at the right time, and I had donated a little bit of money to it, and it ended up that I think several hundred women lives had been saved, and I actually met one of the women, the first woman that had been saved from this organization.
So it was this organization, the Underground Railroad, that is rescuing these women?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the organization that you contributed to?
That's correct.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Gold.
Okay, thank you, sir. You're excused. Defense, when you're ready, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Judge. Sergeant Snell, James Snell.
Good afternoon, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. Please speak into the microphone, state your full name, and spell your last name for the record. It's actually the stationary one that's affixed to the desk.
Okay.
It doesn't move.
Okay. James Snell,
Good afternoon, Sergeant. How long have you been with the Broward Sheriff's Office?
since March 6th of 2000.
And what's you're currently a sergeant
Yes.
in any specific division?
I'm in patrol.
Okay, so a sergeant in road patrol.
Yes.
And what was your position on September 26, 2011?
I was a patrol deputy.
Sir, will you lean into the microphone a bit more? Probably better. Thank you.
Okay.
And Sergeant, can you tell us what are the duties of a road patrol deputy?
We're the first responder. We respond to basically emergencies or initiations of calls. We patrol the area for things that are crimes. We handle car accidents, alarms, service calls. Pretty much whatever is received by 911 dispatch, we're usually the first responder.
Okay. And do you know what a CAD report is?
Yes.
Could you generally explain what a CAD report is to the jury, please?
When the 911 call taker receives a phone call, they generate a report with a brief synopsis of what the call is about.
Okay, I'm showing you states 482.
In evidence?
Yes, it's in evidence. Yes, Your Honor. Can you see that on your screen?
I'm sorry? All of them? And who controls that?
Well, we're trying to see what's going on.
Okay, give us just a second. I understand the jurors' monitors are out and we are working on the problem.
Okay. Okay.
Can both sides see?
We can see.
You, was the defense can see or no?
Yes.
And sir, is yours
Yes.
showing? Okay, and mine's showing.
Yeah, the jury's also.
Yes,
The screen went blank again.
I
okay.
think he's trying to reset.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
They're good now.
They're all dead.
They're on?
No, they're all dead.
Okay. Let me- Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a bit more complicated than we might have thought. So we're going to take a 10-minute recess and try to fix the screens. Please do not discuss the case among yourselves. Please leave the notepads behind. present. Everyone else may be seated. So we made paper copies, and then just as soon as we did that, the monitors went back on. So we have the paper copies as a backup just in case. Ms. Basham, ma'am, you may continue when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. So before we had our technical difficulties, you had explained what a CAT report is.
Yes.
And I am showing you part of States 482, which, could you explain what this is?
This is a CAD report.
Okay? And it's dated 9/26/11.
Yes.
And did you respond out to this address on 9/26/11?
Based on this CAD report, it states I did, yes.
Okay. Did you write a written report on this incident?
No, I did not.
Sergeant Snell, could you tell us what this call was about?
The call states complainant versus son, subject being violent, throwing items. Subject has not hit complainant. Subject, white male, last seen wearing white shirt. Caller requests that only one unit be dispatched.
And who was this call about?
It was a call about Zachary Cruz.
Okay. Why did who was the complainant in this case, or in this incident?
The mother.
And why would the mother request only one unit be dispatched?
I can't answer for her.
If he knows why the complainant only requested one.
Do you know whether or not that's the case?
The call states that.
Okay, go ahead.
The call states caller requests that only one unit be dispatched.
And did you send out only one unit to this call?
I can't recall.
Okay. Does the CAD reflect if there would be just you or if there would be other officers?
The CAD report shows, the CAD report actually I'd have to read this for 1 second, but it does have multiple deputies responding, and it looks like one was gonna go and then another unit went.
Take your time if you need to read it, Sergeant.
Do you want a paper copy?
Yep.
Will you give him one of the paper copies?
It looks like only one unit responded.
Only one unit.
It looks that way.
Okay. And when you arrived on scene, did you speak with Linda Cruz?
My recollection, I had spoken to Linda Cruz. I do believe it's related to this case. Again, due to the time frame specifically, I believe so, yes.
Okay. And what did you speak to her about?
The recollection I have of my conversation with Ms. Cruz was she called about her son, and it was not related to any crime or anything that law enforcement really could take action in. It was more of an issue that, as a parent, I believe it required discipline from the parent.
So did you find it odd that she had called the police for this type of incident?
It's not, it has happened with other people, but yes, he was very young at the time she called for what was occurring.
Did you speak with Zachary Cruz?
I did speak with him at some point, yes.
And what was Zachary's demeanor when you spoke with him?
He was very young, but he seemed a little detached and a little, wasn't focusing on me. I'm not sure how I could explain it, but he didn't seem to really comprehend everything.
Okay. Did he seem to have anything, when you say detached, could you explain that a little bit further?
Distracted, I guess. He would listen for me for a little bit and look at something else. I just remember it's very vague, so I can't remember the exact conversation, but I do remember he just seemed very young, and he was listening to what I said, but at the same time looking at other things, and didn't seem like he was completely focused.
And when you did speak to Linda Cruz, did you have a conversation specifically with her about using law enforcement as a parent?
I can't recall specifically of that. I do remember telling her that as a parent, she needs to be the primary person that the child would respect and discipline for matters of this nature. I remember saying something of that gist of it.
Okay. Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may. Thank you, Sergeant. State?
No questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. You're excused. Thank you. Defense, you may call your next witness. Sure. Deputy Gary Mikulski. Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. Please speak into the stationary microphone that's directly in front of you, affixed to the desk.
Okay.
State your full name and spell your last name.
My name is Deputy Gary Mikulski. I am a Deputy Sheriff with the Broward Sheriff's Office, City of Parkland.
Would you spell your last name for us, please?
Michalosky.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy.
Yeah.
How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
With the Sheriff's Office since 2004. Prior to that, I was a Public Safety Officer with the City of Parkland from 1999 to 2004.
And currently your position is Road Patrol Deputy?
Currently, I'm working as a School Resource Officer for West Glades Middle School in Parkland.
Okay. And what was your position on August 19th of 2012?
I was working Road Patrol.
How about January 15th, 2013?
Working Road Patrol also.
Deputy, do you ever, or do you recall ever going out to the Cruz home?
Yes.
Do you recall being called out to that home on August 19th, 2012?
I don't recall that date, no.
Okay. When you would go out to an address, would you document every time you went out to an address?
Not necessarily every time, no. Depends on the circumstances of the call.
And what circumstances would warrant you to document it?
If it reaches the level of an event that, if something where we would have to get involved in it in some capacity, we would definitely do a report on it.
And before you arrive on scene to an address, would you do a check if there had been previous calls to that particular address?
Typically, yes.
Okay. And so you would have the ability to do that somehow?
Yes.
And what means would you use to find out if there had been previous
There's more than one way of doing it. One, you could ask dispatch to give you a call history while you're en route. Another is you can actually go into the computer aided dispatch itself, just hitting a function code and, for that address. And, come back with a list of previous calls to that address.
Deputy, if I showed you a CAD report from August 19, 2012, would that refresh your recollection if you had actually responded to the home on that date?
I couldn't tell you. I can't go solely based on a CAD report.
Okay. So, do you recall going out to the Cruz home on January 15, 2013?
That one in particular, I do recall going out there, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, may I have a moment, please?
You may. May I approach the witness? You may.
Deputy, can you tell us what this is?
This is an event report, or incident report, dated January 15, 2013, 18:13 hours, or 6:13 p.m.
I'm sorry, 1813 hours.
Yes, or 6:13 p.m.
Do you, take a second if you would, it starts on the third page is the actual report,
Correct.
and if you could review that, please. Don't read it, just if you could review it. And make any corrections that you think need to be made.
The only one that sticks out is that on this paragraph here, it'll be second from the last, where I wrote in there that once I was able to determine Nicholas did pose a threat of harm to himself or others, that should have been did not pose a threat of harm
Would
to
you mind
himself.
just notating not there and initially?
Sure.
Thank you. And is this an accurate reflection of your report from that
Yes.
day? Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to offer into evidence what's been marked as defense 5Z.
State, do you have any objection? Okay, defense exhibit, composite exhibit 5Z for identification will be received as defense 60 without objection. Sure.
And while the clerk is marking that, I'll ask you a few more questions, Deputy. Were you aware that as of January 15th, 2013, that the police had been called out to the Cruz home 15 times?
I was not aware of that.
And you do have an independent recollection of this particular call?
Yes.
Why were you there?
We got called to the house because Mom, the way the call originally came out was supposedly there was a physical altercation between the mom and her son, Nicholas. When I arrived there on scene, obviously that wasn't the case. What had happened was, when I first arrived on scene, I asked Linda Cruz what happened. She explained to me that basically Nicholas was upset with her because she wouldn't let him play with his Xbox. So he started picking up things in the house and throwing it against the wall. And when she saw things were escalating, she called 911, which time he barricaded himself inside his bedroom. Couldn't lock himself in because the door wasn't locked.
Okay.
Or didn't have a lock on it, so.
Besides the Xbox situation, did Linda Cruz tell you anything else on why Nicholas's behavior started?
Yeah, that he did not want to go to school that day because he said that he was having difficulty with classes, and that he did, that was his reason for not wanting to go to school. But she basically, as a discipline, said, okay, I'm not going to push it. You go on to school, but you're not going to play your Xbox. And she took his Xbox and locked it in the trunk of her car.
And were you aware at this time where Nicholas had stated he was having difficulty, and that's why he didn't go to school?
That was his basis for why he didn't want to go to school, yes.
And were you aware that he was at Westglades Middle at that time?
I was not aware at the time.
Did this call come in as a domestic violence, domestic disturbance call?
Yes, that's the original header of it, domestic disturbance.
And was it later changed to another code?
Yes, mental illness.
And were you the one who told somebody to make that change?
I'm sorry, yes, I would tell dispatch to make that change.
Can you describe Linda Cruz's demeanor when you spoke with her?
She seems to be a very stern type of parent. I mean, not aggressive. I mean, I didn't see her as being like one to be like, how would you say, yelling or screaming or anything like that, or being demanding. But she is a pretty stern person. I would say that. That would be the best way to describe her.
Did she seem upset to you?
Yeah, she was upset, obviously. So, it's, obviously she had just finished getting into an, watching her son, basically, getting upset and starting throwing things around the house, I would say that would certainly qualify why she would be upset.
Was she crying at all?
No, I didn't recall her crying.
And when you spoke with Linda Cruz, were you inside or outside of the home?
Initially, I was outside. She was at the doorstep, so we met at the door. I was outside. She was right at the doorstep at the time.
But eventually you went inside. Did
Correct.
you eventually go inside the house?
Right. When she told me that he was barricaded, they basically pushed furniture up against the door, barricade himself in. That's when we went in to check on his well-being, see what was going on inside his room.
Now, before you went to Nicholas's bedroom where he barricaded himself, did you take a look around the house?
I didn't take a look around. I was just basically the common areas as I was walking through. There's a living room, and then there's a kitchen just ahead of that, and then the bedrooms are off to the left-hand side, or would be that would be like the northeast corner of the house is where the bedrooms are at. The kitchen would be just to the right of that, and then the living room is in front of that doorway, being between the living room. The doorway being at the beginning of the living room as you're walking forward towards the kitchen.
When you were in or around the living room area, what did you observe?
Broken glass, basically from a vase that was laying on the ground, what appeared to be a vase. And I think there was a dog bowl also that was broken.
So that was consistent
Right.
With what Ms. Cruz had
Right.
told you?
Correct.
So at some point you make it to Nicholas's bedroom,
Correct.
and were you able to get inside the bedroom?
Yes.
And did you enter, so you entered inside the actual bedroom?
Correct.
Can you describe what the bedroom looked like?
Disheveled, just unkempt. I wouldn't say dirty per se. It wasn't like, it was just basically probably what you would expect from a typical teen. Clothes thrown around the floor, stuff like that. But, nothing that was like unsanitary, so to speak. The only other thing was there was a couple of holes in the wall, in the bedroom that I recall seeing in there. I don't think that was from that event. That was from a previous incident that probably happened at that house at some point.
And based on your training experience, what did you believe those holes were caused from?
Somebody taking out their anger.
And did you eventually get Nicholas out of the bedroom?
Yes.
And did you handcuff him?
Yes, I did at that time while I was trying to figure out what was really happening and, and also for safety.
Did Nicholas comply with you when
Yes.
you were handcuffing him? Initially, what was Nicholas's demeanor?
Calm, flat, really wasn't talkative, just kind of just sitting there.
When you say flat, can you kind of describe that?
No emotions, just basically just kind of just like, how would you say, like maybe the calm after a storm, I don't know, so to speak.
And once Nicholas was handcuffed, where did you take him?
Into the living room area, had him sit in the chair in the living room at first. And then when we were assessing further, I then took him outside and put him in the backseat of my patrol car so I can talk to Linda one-on-one, because I was still waiting for backup to arrive.
Okay. And when you talked to Linda one-on-one, was that a more detailed conversation than when you first arrived?
Yes.
Okay. And in that conversation, did she tell you about Nicholas and anything he may be suffering from?
She did tell me that he suffers from behavioral and developmental disabilities with ADHD.
Did she tell you anything about medication?
I didn't get specific into the medication. I didn't think it was relevant for me at that time.
While you were out there, did you also perform an assessment, a Baker Act assessment?
Yes.
Okay. And you are qualified to do that?
Yes, as a law enforcement officer, I can do up to a certain level. I'm not qualified as a clinician. But
Were there any other agencies on scene while you were there?
no, nobody at that, not initially, no.
Okay. But eventually, did another agency?
Yes.
And which agency was that?
That would be Henderson Mental Health, Youth Emergency Services.
Okay. And they came out to do a Baker Act assessment as well?
Correct.
And do you know if Linda had called the police first or Henderson first?
She called Henderson first.
Okay.
As I understood it, he was under the care of a licensed clinician at Henderson, which is why she reached out to the Henderson first.
Did Linda tell you after she made that call if things escalated at that point? And
Yes.
that's why, okay.
Yeah, she was hoping to get, a crisis intervention specialist out there to do a crisis intervention before things escalated. But when she wasn't getting any call back initially and things were starting to escalate, that's when she decided to call us to respond out.
And after you had the detailed conversation with Linda, did you try speaking with Nicholas again?
Not entirely, no.
What does that mean?
I mean, just making sure he's okay, he wasn't hurt or anything like that, check for injuries, pretty much the base of it, and just waiting for it. When Henderson did call back saying they were on their way, just basically standing by until they got here to the house.
And was Nicholas responsive to you at all?
Not really, no.
Now, did you write a report in this particular incident?
In this incident, yes.
Okay. Why did you choose to write a report for this call?
Because of how involved I got into it with, ensuring the safety, well-being, the circumstances of the call, the assessment for injuries, my reason for why I didn't initiate a Baker Act, is pretty much the reason why I did the report.
And was Nicholas arrested for this incident?
No.
If a person is convicted of a domestic violence offense, would they be able to own a gun?
What's that?
If a person was convicted of a domestic violence offense, would they be able to own a gun?
No.
Do you know about how many times you've actually responded to the Cruz home?
I can't speculate. I know at least 2 to 3 times. I think mostly for his brother than it was for him.
Okay. So that was my next question. You've had some contact with Zachary?
Right.
And in one particular incident, you were asked to escort Zachary somewhere.
Yes, to the Littman Youth Services Center.
Okay. And what is Littman Youth Services?
It's a facility in Oakland Park, the city of Oakland Park. It's for teens that are having difficulty with school, and also may have behavioral problems. And it's like a residential program for them to help them try to get them back on track with their schooling and try to bridge. They also have counselors that work both with the children and also with the parents and trying to bridge them back together into a family unit again, as far as through counseling and that, basically reintegrating the family again.
And based on your observations, did Linda Cruz seem overwhelmed raising the boys?
I would say that she probably felt like she was in over her head with it, yes, because I do remember a conversation once where she did talk about when they were first adopted, her husband was still around, and I guess, shortly after, unexpectedly, I guess her husband passed away, and she was left obviously having to raise the kids herself. So, but I could clearly see based on her age in relation to the age of the children that she definitely had it was a challenge for her, definitely.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Judge, may I just publish the police report? I'll just show the narrative. It's very short. Sure. Thank you. Charlene, is that better?
Is anybody having trouble seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
They have it, it's just very small for them to read.
I can see there's one in there, Josh.
It's not the copy,
It's the size of it.
Yeah, it's very blurry. It's not blurry on my screen. I think that there's an issue maybe.
Blurry over here.
Do you want to make photocopies?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
And do that again? I think there must be an issue with the jurors' screens, so we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way. Give us a few minutes, please. Did you wanna ask him questions while you publish it?
No, Judge.
So do you wanna start, why don't you just start passing around the original?
Charlene took the original.
Oh, duh. Sorry. Thank you.
I might have another clean copy.
I have a copy in my pocket, so.
It's okay, he made that little notation, before you entered it into the.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You made the correction.
You have a minute or two.
All right.
thinking the machine was in power saver mode. Had to be fired up from scratch. Was it in power saver mode?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody need a copy?
Your Honor, if we could just give him a few minutes to read that. I don't have any further questions at this time for
Okay.
this deputy.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you each have your own copy. Take a look at it. When you're finished reviewing it, if you would just set it on the ledge so that I know that everybody's finished. Is that everybody? I think that's everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll collect.
Will you collect them, please? State?
Good afternoon, Deputy.
Good afternoon.
In addition to all of your law enforcement training, you also have a degree in nursing, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you're also a certified EMT?
I was a certified EMT at one time, yes.
And you're also certified in crisis intervention training?
Yes, currently.
Okay. And on direct, the defense asked you about the number of times the police had responded to the Cruz residents, and you said that you were not aware of the amount of times.
I can't speculate the number of times we've been out there.
I'm sorry, so just keep your voice up for me because you're trailing off.
I can't speculate as to the number of times we've been out to the house.
Okay, so you would know that 27 of those times were for the defendant's brother, Zachary?
I'm sorry?
So you don't know that the 27 of those calls were for the defendant's
Yeah,
brother?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. And only 4 of them were for the defendant?
Yeah, I don't.
You wouldn't know that?
I wouldn't know.
Okay. So on this call on January 15th, 2013, that was at approximately 6:15 p.m. that you arrived at the Cruz residence?
Yes.
And it was originally reported as a domestic, but that was later changed?
Correct.
Okay. And Linda actually came out of the home to tell you what had gone on?
Yes, I met her at the doorway, yes.
Okay. And she indicated that defendant didn't want to go to school that day, and as punishment, she took away the Xbox, and he didn't like that, so he started throwing things around the house.
Correct.
And at the time, the defendant was in his room, and he had barricaded his dressers in front of the door. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you go into the defendant's room with the assistance of Linda Cruz?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall if Linda was injured at all?
No, she was not.
And did Linda tell you that it was when she told her son she had called the police, that's when he went into his room and started putting up the dressers to barricade himself?
Correct.
Okay. And you were able to access the room, correct?
Yes.
And when you got inside the room, the defendant was calm, right?
Correct.
And he wasn't yelling at you, correct? No. He wasn't throwing anything at you?
No.
Didn't curse at you?
No.
Didn't get physical with you?
No.
He understood you and complied?
Yes.
Didn't try to resist you at all?
No.
Okay. And then you separated Linda and the defendant, correct?
Correct.
And you put the defendant outside in your police cruiser?
Correct.
And then you had a chance to speak to Linda again?
Yes.
And when you were speaking to Linda, did you get the impression that she was a good mom?
I can't speculate on what type of parent she is.
But she was
Within that short time, I can't speculate.
I'm sorry, it wasn't last
I says I can't speculate as to what kind of parenting she is, or what kind of parent she is, based on the short time that I had with her on that day.
Well, you'd agree with me, she was clearly trying to get some assistance for her son.
I could say that she apparently was trying her best. I mean, she reached out to Henderson before calling us, and so she obviously was, she had a case manager working with Nicholas Cruz prior to that day.
So you're familiar with Henderson?
Yes.
And you mentioned that there's a case manager that's usually accompanied with a...
Correct.
With the person that is getting
yeah, there's somebody that's
Can you
assigned.
hear one at a time, guys?
I'm sorry, my apologies.
That's okay.
It's my fault. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, there's usually somebody assigned to the case, and once they establish, or once there's like a, I don't know how to say it, I wouldn't call it a mission, but once they've, went for outpatient services with Henderson, they would establish a case manager assigned solely to that person.
And do you have a lot of experience with them based on your
Yes.
crisis intervention? Okay. And you've worked well with them before?
Yes, probably just to understand, so you understand that at that time, we didn't have a crisis intervention team program.
Okay.
At the Broward Sheriff's Office. That happened after.
Okay, but you had the training?
Yes.
Okay. And when you were with Nicholas after you spoke to Linda for the second time, he told you that he acted the way he did because he was mad at his mom, right?
Yes, he was acting out, yes.
And again, these conversations were, the defendant was calm.
When I met with him that night, yes.
Okay. In other words, he wasn't yelling and screaming at you. Okay. And in fact, in your presence, the defendant actually apologized to his mom.
Yes.
And at that time, based on your training and experience, you made a finding that the defendant was not a threat to himself, correct?
From a law enforcement standpoint, he didn't meet the criteria for a Baker Act.
Okay. So that means he's not a threat to himself or anybody else.
At that time, no.
And you said you waited until Henderson arrived.
Yes,
And the counselor, I believe her name is Nina Barella.
yes.
She arrived. Did you have any conversation with her?
Just real briefly. Yes.
Okay. Did you continue observing the defendant throughout the entire?
Yes, no, while she was assessing. I mean, I kept a distance from her because of patient-client confidentiality while she's talking to him, but yeah.
Okay, so you observed Ms. Barella speaking with the defendant?
Correct.
Okay. And again, he was calm?
Yes.
He wasn't screaming and yelling?
No.
Wasn't throwing things?
No.
Wasn't cursing?
Right.
He was in control of himself?
It was around that time, and I can't remember exactly at what point, when at the time Nina arrived or right around the time before Nina arrived, sometime immediately before or after, Linda was able to get Nicholas to take his prescribed medication, which I think further calmed him down.
Okay. But going back to his conversation you observed with Ms. Barella, he was able to have a conversation with her calmly?
He was calm, yes.
Okay.
I can't tell you what they talked about.
The reason for the call, and Linda described his behavior as we've gone over, the screaming and yelling, and
Yes.
throwing things and breaking things.
Mhm.
That was not something you observed by the defendant at any time while you were
No.
on the scene? That was told to you by Mrs. Cruz?
Yes.
And because that was the behavior she was dealing with at the time?
Yes.
And during the time that you were there, and even up until the time Ms. Varela came, you didn't observe any of that behavior, even before the defendant took his medication?
No, I did not.
And so you got the impression then that the defendant could control his behavior when he so chose?
At that time, yes.
Thank you, Deputy. I have nothing further.
Sure. That's right.
She has one more question, she said.
Deputy, you mentioned that the crisis intervention training was not around at this time.
Correct.
You had stated that it happened after,
Mhm.
and was the crisis intervention training implemented because of these shootings? After these shootings? Excuse me.
I believe that.
Okay, hold on just a second, please.
Which the state brought up the crisis.
Okay, hold on a second. You asked the question. State overruled, you can answer.
Okay. I believe that the crisis intervention team training actually started shortly after Scott Israel was elected as sheriff.
Okay, and what year?
And it was, I'm trying to remember what year exactly. Gosh, I want to say it was like around 2000. That had to have been, I would say, around 2016, 2017, somewhere around there.
Okay,
Was when
and
they-
I'm sorry. That's my
No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's been several years ago, so, but
And currently, is the crisis intervention training required or just strongly encouraged?
they were making it a requirement at the time when they first started the program, that they were shooting for a goal of getting all the deputies trained in that.
Okay. May I have a moment?
You may.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Deputy.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now you're excused. Defense, when you're ready, call your next witness. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be in recess for the evening. Please remember, I know I say this ad nauseum, do not discuss the case with anyone, including your close friends and family members. Please leave your notepads behind, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
What time, Judge?
9 o'clock.
Thank you.
recess for the evening.